Hey guys, Britton here, Britton's Fish Tank channel, fishtanktv.com, coming at you with a video. I wanted to do a shell dweller video for my boy Robbie at fishtanktv.com. So here's this channel on YouTube, 98Robbie98, and this is actually my third take on the video. Everybody keeps interrupting me, but I'll try and make it and talk to you about shell dwellers. So first off, shell dwellers are from Lake Tanganyika, Africa. World's second largest lake, actually, so it's very stable in terms of water conditions. You're gonna need a pH between 8 and 9 is probably the best, and that's just because the lake's actually in the 9s, but it's better just to have a pH of 8 because probably also where the place you got them from is probably gonna be, you know, 7s or like 8s, but most tap water isn't gonna be in the 9s. That's very rare. And yeah, so it's better just to have it about 8. And this can be done a couple of ways. One way that I use in this tank would be the using a buffer. So API makes a API cichlid buffer, which works well for them. That keeps its pH high and also buffer as well and gets the KH up, I think. So yeah, it does very well. And makes the water hard too. So it just gives them good conditions, helps them spawn. As you can see, a little bit of action going on right over here. So this is actually brevis, Lamprologus brevis. That's what I've got. This is my male right here. Right now they're just being a little weird. Typically they're down by the shell bed just chilling, but I think they're about to think that I'm going to feed them, which I am. So toss them a little bit of food right here for a sec. But yeah, so these guys are brevis minutus. I only had them for about a month, but I have other shell dwellers in my room. Just put some food up there. Gonna add a little bit more. But I haven't had them for that long, but they're awesome fish. I really like them. So yeah, these guys are the brevis. You were talking about maybe splitting it up and have it brevis and multis. They're pretty similar, actually, you know, but with the brevis, the differences between them, the brevis are actually going to, when they have a female, as you can see, they're chasing the food I just gave them, but the male and female, this male right here, he's paired up with this female right here. So typically not during feeding time, but usually they're down here at this shell right here, and they just chill together. They follow each other around because they're a pair. So these guys form pairs, basically a male and female pair, and the males will breed with that female. They're not going to breed with other females. They're going to stick with that female and breed with her for life. These two are a pair right here, these ones, and then that's the male that isn't a pair. So you can see though, they're just funny. Look at them, they're chowing down on some food. But as you can see, at feeding time they get very active, which is cool. Typically they're down closer to the shells. Sometimes they'll be in the middle. I mean, just chilling. They're not as boring as people make them out to be. They're actually very fun and very exciting fish. They're not boring at all. To be completely honest with you, they're not boring like some people make them out to be. It really depends on where you get them from, though. I mean, you want to get them from a place that you trust and that you like, and probably someplace that you know. The place I got them from, I wasn't that familiar with, but they were outgoing, and you know, they weren't like just all hiding in their shells. They had one species that was just hiding in their shells. I mean, hiding in like decorations and stuff. And and they were actually cooler, and they were cheaper than these guys too, but I was like, you know what, I'm not going to get those because I'd rather have one that's going to be outgoing and fish like this rather than something that's just going to hide a lot and not be that fun. So pick your fish out well when you're getting them, you know. Make sure they're all healthy, swimming around. You know, they're not going to be like this all the time, you know. The ones at the pet store were on the ground, but at least I could see them. They weren't like hiding. Totally. And they'll color up and get a little bit better usually once they're in your tank and acclimated to your stuff. So, you know, they're pretty cool fish. I love them. So as far as, let's talk about shells quickly. First off, these are escargot shells. I got them off Amazon 36 pack of them for 15 bucks. So basically 50 cents per shell. It's one of my females just chilling right there. But she's got a bunch of flakes in her mouth. But so 50 cents basically per shell, because I got 36 of them for 15 bucks, which was a good deal. And I used these in this tank, and I have 11 in this tank for the 4 fish, and that works well. That worked well for them. They like these shells. 2 of them take this half right here, which is actually a little more than a half, and then the rest of them, and then the other 2 take these 5 shells over here, and these ones take these like 6 shells over here. So they do split up kind of, I guess, into little small parts of the tank, and they defend their territory, you know. But during feeding time, they just kind of cruise around the tank, and they don't really care where they go. They'll just all go all over the tank and spread out. Sorry for the background noise, my rabbits are eating, but and making noise. But as far as the shells, you want something that's going to be light, and because they can typically not as much with the brevis, but the multis especially, they'll dig a ton. These guys I haven't had for that long, so I haven't really seen a lot of digging. This I'm pretty sure is digging, what was due to digging, because it was kind of flat, and as you can see there's a little indent right there. If you check out Mike or Vegas Surfer, you can see his multis, he has multifasciitis, and his just dig all over the place. Like, the whole substrate is lopsided and stuff. It's funny. But these guys haven't dug a lot. Brevis aren't really much of the digging type. Multis are more of that. So if you want a fish that's going to dig, then try multis out. These guys will dig a little bit, and I've seen them do it. But, you know, it's not as common for them to dig, or at least as much as the multis. So yeah, shells, you know, I'd get the escargots off Amazon. That's a great deal, especially if you're setting up a couple shell dollar tanks, or if you want to eventually set up shell dollar tanks, because, I mean, they do like their shells, and you want to give at least 2 per fish, and that's like the bare minimum. For brevis, you know, brevis typically live in lower shell density areas, so they can go with less shells, but I still suggest 2 per fish on the brevis. Multis like even more. You know, if you can get like 4 per fish on the multis, that's great. You know, that's not always gonna happen. Some people will just say like, oh, you need a shell per fish, but you want to have at least 2, no matter what breed you're doing. Stuff like ocellatus, you want to have a lot of rocks in. That's another breed, but I didn't want to really talk to you about them because, 1, I'm not familiar with them as much as multis and brevis, and 2, they are more aggressive, and I just wouldn't start with them off as your beginner shell dweller. They're more of like after you've conquered brevis or multis, and then you want to try out ocellatus, because they're a little bit more aggressive and they're a little bit harder to keep. And so yeah. But as far as live plants go, you can put a bunch of live plants in this tank. As you can see, I mean, my tank has a decent amount of live plants. And shell dwellers can go typically as low as a 5-gallon. If you want to have like a pair of multis in a 5-gallon, that'll work perfectly fine. You could probably do a trio. I mean, I'm not even sure, but you could probably do a trio in that easily. I'm not positive on that, but it seems like you could. This is actually a 14-gallon, which is just a tall 10. Same length and width, it's just taller. So these guys like a floor plan, though. So my 15 is better for that because it's 24 and it's like 13.5, when this one's like 10.5 or something on the sides. So they do like a better floor plan just so you can have more rocks and stuff, because they don't really care about height that much, because they're typically they like to stay down at the bottom of the tank, or at least the lower levels. So a typical 10 would probably be, you know, down to like there. So yeah, but I'm glad I have the 14 just for the extra height, so I can keep like taller like Java fern mats and anacris and stuff. But so as far as live plants, you know, there's a lot of live plants that are gonna do you all right. Substrate, you're gonna want something sandy and not sharp. Try to get something like Caribsea makes a good sand. It's Caribsea cichlid mix, and that's also good because it raises the pH, so you don't have to deal with you know, pH problems, you know, because these guys do need a high pH. So there's a couple ways to do that. And I already talked about the buffer. The second way is substrate, which, you know, you can use crushed coral, I've heard, works well for them. Crushed coral as a substrate. I think it's a little bit larger, and it's definitely larger than this sand is going to be. This is actually regular pool filter sand, so it doesn't do anything to the pH, and instead I just use a buffer. But something for you that might just help is using carob sea cichlid sand mix. It's like a 20-pound bag for $30, so it is relatively pricey, seeing as for this pool filter sand I paid like $12 for 50 pounds, and I've heard of it, you being able to get it for like $6 for 50 pounds at like Home Depot. But yeah, so I mean, just get something that might be better in the long run for you. Would be the carob sea cichlid mix. I don't mind buffering it, but it might just be better to do that. It is more expensive though, so it really depends on how much money you have and what you're willing to do. But I've also heard that you can put crushed coral in the filters to help raise it. You can use rocks like what's it called? I forget the rock, the name of the rock, but I know, like, I think like 2-for rock helps raise the pH, or at least a little bit. And then there's another one, I forget the name, but there's a certain amounts of and certain types of rocks that'll help you, that'll help raise the pH and get it nice and high, or at least higher than your regular pH, so you don't have to like buffer it and stuff. You could use driftwood in a shell water tank, and I've definitely seen it being used. I don't know though, because I know that driftwood will lower the pH, so you know, I just be careful with that if you are planning on using driftwood. As far as the rocks go, I have not had any problems with these rocks or in any of my other tanks. I practically have rocks in basically all of my other tanks, or at least most of them. And how I did this was I went outside and got a bunch of rocks from my backyard, and yeah, so most of these just came from my yard outside. All of these actually did come from outside of my yard. I never really bought any of them at a pet store, just because it's a waste of money. I mean, if you can do it yourself, then just do it. You know, get some rocks outside. These guys, just avoid like chalky looking ones, or just ones with like plants and moss growing on them. Don't get those, but just stuff, you know, this stuff works fine. As long as you avoid like chalky and metallic rocks, you should be perfectly fine. And there's like various tests with like vinegar that you can use and stuff to check to make sure that the that it doesn't alter the pH in like an acidic or basic way. But I've never had any problems with it. I never did that test, and they wound up fine. And if anything, they raise the pH. They don't really seem to have any effect on lowering it, which is good. And as you can see, I mean, it gives it a nice look to it. You know, if I went out to the pet store and bought rocks, I would only be able to get a couple of them, seeing as they're so expensive. And, you know, so this is a good way to save money and also have a lot of rocks, because they do enjoy rocks. You know, yes, they do definitely need shells, but rocks are nice for them. Plus, it just gives it a nice look to the tank. As far as live plants go, you can do dwarf sage is a nice hardy grassy plant that works great. Anacris, this is the narrow leaf. That stuff does fine in this high pH. There's some more of the narrow leaf anacris, and there's a little bit more of the dwarf sage. More dwarf sage. That stuff's actually doing really good in 8.4 pH, which is kind of crazy. Anacris is doing perfectly fine in this pH. Definitely a must-have, or at least must-try out, is Java Fern. You don't have to have live plants in a shelled water tank, but it definitely helps. Especially like when you have fry, it probably helps provide like organisms that might be living on the plants for the fry to eat and stuff. So it's just a good idea to at least try out having live plants. So this is Java Fern, as you can see, really healthy, like hardy plant. You don't need like any light for this plant to grow. You still need some, but it's very low light plant. Same with the Anubias in the back, which is doing pretty good. More Java Fern, that and that are the same thing. That's also Java Fern, just a mat of it, so that and that are also the same. More Java Fern. I just love Java Fern. It grows great. A little bit of Anubias. This is the same plant as that, except they're both the Anubias species. This is actually Anubias ninema, and this is either Nana or Barderai or some other type, but I know that one's ninema. Then more Anacris, and I got a little bit of Java moss in there. You can kind of see that if I go around right there, the Java moss tangled in there. And as you can see, I mean, I have a couple nice spots for the brevas to go and hide in the rocks, and I've made a couple little small caves for them to go through. So as far as filtration goes, you want to have something like, this is a Whisper PF10 filter, and that's an Aqua-tech Quiet Flow 10. And the reason why I'm running 2 filters is, one, because I want extra filtration. Just in general, I like to have a lot of filtration on my tanks. Helps keep maintenance down and helps break down ammonia. Having a lot of biological filtration is good. But another thing is water movement. Now, shell dwellers live in very oxygenated water. Lake Tanganyika is very oxygenated, so you gotta have a lot of water movement in the tank. Now, this is pretty good for them, because the oxygen, especially when the water level is a little bit lower, it comes down and it gets down there, and that works fine for them, because these filters are pretty good. The best way to do it is probably an air stone, though. Just run an air stone or two, and that'll help add oxygen to the water. And you just need good water movement, you know, because they live in oxygenated water, so if they don't have a lot of oxygen, it's kind of like corridors catfish in a tropical tank, you know. They'll graze the substrate, which at the top there'll be more oxygen because of the filters, but down here there's not as much oxygen level at the bottom of the tank than there is at the top. Unless you have like an air stone or something, or a power head pushing down there. But you don't need a power head, you just need an air stone. Power head would probably be overkill and it might stress out your fish. But yeah, that's them. As far as feeding goes, sorry that this video's been so long, but I wanted to cover everything. Omega-1 cichlid flakes, this is what I've been feeding. It works great. It's just like a tropical flake, basically, except for cichlids. You know, this stuff works great. They'd really like it. At first they weren't eating it, so I went out and bought this stuff. This stuff works fine too. A lot of people swear by New Life Spectrum. This is the 1mm pellet type. So I have a pellet and a flake. And they eat both of them. Both of them work perfectly fine. So yeah. I'm trying to see if I've covered everything with them. Let me think. So the rocks, as far as the rocks go, I didn't finish with the rocks. Basically what I did was just scrub them off. Scrub them off real good with a clean toothbrush, and then I boiled them in boiling water. Sorry about the noise in the background. Shh. But yeah, so then I boiled them in hot water for like 30 or 45 minutes, and that worked well for them. And they didn't do anything to the water. So a lot of people worry about adding rocks to the tank, and it's going to screw with the pH and everything. But in all honesty, it didn't do anything. As long as you're safe with them, and you boil them and scrub them off well, and do the required stuff, you can have them, and it works very nice. So, yeah, that's basically what I can think of them for now. If you have any other questions, then just ask me, and I'll be glad to answer them. So yeah, that's for you, Robbie. Sorry about making it so long, but if you have any other info that you want to know about them, I think I covered most of the stuff. With water changes, they are sensitive, so you want to do small water changes. Since the lake's so big, it's very stable. So, you know, you want to do water changes, you know, like 10% a week instead of doing like a 50%, like just randomly doing a 50% or 50% a month. No, you want to do small but frequent water changes with these guys. But they are hardy fish, and they're a lot of fun. You know, a lot of people say they're boring, but they got a nice personality, and they're pretty sweet. So, yeah, I hope I helped you out, and if you have any other questions, just comment below or message me, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible on this. And I can't wait to see your tank. He said he was doing Robbie said that he was doing a divided tank, which was basically, you know, he was having like a 100-liter tank, which I think is like 26 gallons US, and then he was splitting it down into like 3 or 4 sections, I forget, but he was going to do a community in like the middle, and then a shell dweller section, and possibly a shrimp section, and then take the shell dweller section and cut it in half and have like a 5 or 10 gallon brevis. Yeah, I think it was going to be like 5 gallon for a brevis pair, and then another 5 gallons for a multi-pair. So then you can have both of them, and that works fine. You know, pairs will do well. This is a good setup for them. I mean, that's definitely enough room for 4. I'm thinking about adding, you know, a 5th or 6th one. But, you know, you could probably have like 6 to 8 in here. would probably be fine, as long as you have enough shells, 2 per fish. So 6, you need 12 shells. 8, you probably want to have closer to 16. And for multis, you probably want to have even more. So, make those shells clump together. If you're doing multis, try to have more shells than more rocks. Multis, you can have some rocks, but the main thing with them is you want to have a lot of shells. So, instead of having like these rocks here that separate them, just put a bunch of shells kind of, and try and fit as many as possible, because they really do like the shells. So yeah, I think I covered everything. So if you've got any more questions, just ask me, and thanks for watching. Also, the 100 sub video, I don't know when I'm doing it, but I will be doing it eventually. So probably next week sometime. I just want to get a good amount of questions. So thanks for those of you who've been commenting. I've been getting some good questions, so I'm looking forward to making the video and answering those. So I'll probably be doing that sometime next week, maybe during the weekdays if I have time, or during the weekend, but I should hopefully be getting it out next week. So thanks for watching. Please comment, rate, subscribe, and again, just if you have any more questions about them, just ask me. Alright, sorry about the long video, but I'm going to end it here.